Hi everyone, and welcome to the Halloween special here at Byland Abbey. Byland Abbey was well known for its structure, its struggles. It went through a lot of planning, it went through a lot of moves before the site that we stand on was finally found, a marsh site. There was quite a lot of drainage. It started in the 1150s and eventually was completed by 1177. It's such a fantastic abbey, such a fantastic achievement of architecture for that time, but it doesn't go by without its spooky ghost stories, and one monk in particular, an unnamed monk who nobody knows the name of, but his manuscripts, his scripts of his ghost stories still remain at the British Public Library today. So, the monk in question remains unnamed, and still to this day we don't know his name or why he writ stories. But one thing is for sure, that he possibly could have stood at this huge fireplace and contemplated what he was writing. He could have witnessed what he's seen. And you just get the feeling that you're not alone in here. This was the warming house, so this is where you would have had the fireplace. If you've got another fireplace over there, you've got a huge one here. This would have been in the winter times where they would have came in to gather, to get warm, to meet, to greet, to maybe reflect. But did he write these stories here as well? The stories still remain in the London Museum, the manuscripts, the original documents, and you're going to hear a couple of the stories in a moment, but we're going to go and explore a little bit more. Let's go and have a look. In the early 15th century, the unnamed monk from Byland Abbey hand-wrote a series of 12 ghost stories. Like previously said, these manuscripts exist to this day and are held at the British Library in London. This is the third story I'm going to read to you now from his famous manuscripts, and it's called The Ghost Hunters. The restless spirit of a man named Robert from Kilburn in North Yorkshire would rise from his grave in the cemetery at night and frighten the locals. Dogs from the town would follow the spirit and bark. The locals wanted to put an end to this, so two men from the town went to the cemetery one night and to accost the spirit. They caught Robert as he was leaving the cemetery. One man held the ghost while the other went to fetch the priest. The spirit confessed his transgressions to the priest, who absolved his sins, allowing Robert to finally rest in peace. Now, it might not sound much of a ghost story, but these were tales, these were stories that people had told over the years, that the monk had come to know these people. Now, monks were people of trust. They wouldn't lie, surely. Surely people would not lie to them. Was it some prankster back then playing a trick? Or did the priest really lay the man to rest? Did he set his soul free? Or does it still wander today? So you might be asking why I chose Byland Abbey as a potential event for my Halloween special. Well, take a look around. There's so much history that's gone on over the years. So much infrastructure, so much trauma, especially war. When King Edward II made his advances on Scotland, it wasn't that successful, and in retreat the Scots came back and sort of sabotaged a lot of the abbeys, including this one, and there wasn't much of it sort of left after that attack. So you can only imagine what bloodshed and what murder and what, you know, violence and unforeseen things that went on here, and no wonder it's got a history. But again, it's very famous for one particular monk, this unnamed monk who wrote 12 ghost stories about tales and things that people had witnessed in the local area, and he decided to document them. And this is why we're here, to see if we can see anything, or to recapture some of them ghost stories that he once told. So here I have the Byland Abbey ghost stories that were done by the unnamed monk. The 12 ghost stories were written in Latin and detailing accounts of supernatural encounters from the local area. The monk's handwritten tales survived centuries as the manuscripts eventually made the way into possession of the British monarchy, and like I previously said, we're in the British Library today. So during the course of the night I'm going to go through some of the ghost stories, some of the tales that's been told over the years to this monk, whether he's overheard these tales or whether he's actually experienced them from himself, but so much to actually write them down. That must have affected him so much that he needed to document them. I'm going to start with ghost story number 5. It's called The Woman Who Caught a Ghost. In the shortest story of the collection I have wrote, I came across a woman who caught a ghost and carried it over her back to a house. While carrying the ghost, one witness reportedly saw the woman's hands plunging deeply into the spirit's flesh, as if it were not solid but imaginary. And that's it. That's all there is. Makes you think though, doesn't it? Was it true, or is it just an illusion? So in the 14th century, it almost seemed as though the Abbey was cursed with the war, the King Edward scenario when the Scots came in, but also the Black Death as well. It almost wiped out half the Abbey's monks and lay brothers, and after that there was only 11 monks left in this Abbey, and also 3 lay brothers. It took time. It took nearly half a century for them to revive the income and the profit and get the numbers back up to 25 monks. So its history has been dealt a horrid blow over the years. This story was number 7 on the list, and it's called The Servant Who Needed Forgiveness. The ghost of a servant returned from the dead to beg for forgiveness after being punished in the afterlife for his sins. The servant confessed to stealing grain from his former master and not ploughing the field properly. His spirit needed help from a living person to make amends with his former master in order to obtain absolution and to end the punishment. Again, where did that story come from? I can imagine there's some truth to it. We often hear stories about spirits coming back and needing to do good deeds and favours to return, to be acknowledged and that sort of thing. But again, it's another one that just makes you think. That's the end of them ghost stories. I haven't read them all. There's some that you have to read over and over and that are quite long. You're probably best off checking them out for yourself. You can get them just by Googling it. So, yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed the stories and the tales from Byland Abbey and the history behind this place. It's definitely worth a visit. So, they might not want me to leave, but I would definitely, if you get the chance to come and visit here, I hope you've liked the video. Please consider subscribing. In no ways was it meant to be frightening and scary. It was just a fun part for you to get involved with Halloween and get into the spirit. But I've really enjoyed making it, and please subscribe to Explore the Outdoor, and hope to see you soon with some more videos. So the fourth ghost story that I'm going to tell you comes from The Monks Take Drastic Action. The ghost of the former rector of Cold Kirby in North Yorkshire, who was buried at Byland Abbey, would travel back to Cold Kirby at night. On one occasion, the spirit blew upon the eye of his former mistress, translated as causing her to go blind. To stop the spirit from doing any more harm, the abbot and monks at Byland Abbey dug up the rector's body. They took his body and coffin to Gormaya Lake, just a few miles away from Byland Abbey, and threw it in. And that's the end of that story.